Hey, everybody. Welcome to Process 34 of the podcast. Today, I got a very special guest on the show, someone I've known since high school, back in the CA days, Carmen Ainsworth, shout out. Known Chuck since high school, has always just been such a positive dude. From what I've seen, I would say a born leader, always a smile on his face, always willing to help somebody, and that has seemed to have transcended on into his adult life and into his career. Chuck's a coach. He is from what I can tell, somewhat of a community activist. He gets involved in his community, helps as much as he can. Like I said, he's a coach. He's a member, or would you be called a member of Involved Dad, or an employee, or how does that work?
Employee, partner,
Okay.
all of that, all coordinator, all of it, everything except for CEO. So
Okay. And then are you involved in Dig Deep also, or you just participate?
Yes. My good friend William Cooper, that's his program. He's the CEO of that. And
Okay.
I just joined the movement, man, being one of the coaches and helping out because I was already doing it and he already had the platform. And
Okay.
his son ended up being on one of my football teams one year. And I already knew about his program, but I finally had met him. And so I told him what I was doing because I was already doing some of the stuff he was doing. And so he's like, "Hey, let's come together."
Right.
And so that's what I've been doing ever since. Kind of just helping him out, man, helping build his platform because
Okay.
he's such a monster, man, when it comes to what he does in developing these youth.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, Chuck Hill, known him since high school. And I say I've known you since high school. I never really knew you, and still don't to that, I guess, to that extent. But I've noticed you. I've noticed how you move. I notice how you operate. And like I said, I respect it, and I notice it, and I want to show people who you are and what you're about. And first I want to start with fatherhood, like what it means for you to be a father, because that's, from what I can see, is the most important thing to you. Almost kind of how somebody would identify you to start with is Chuck Hill, born father, good father, very involved with his kids, extremely involved in their athletics. Just tell me about that. Tell me about fatherhood and how you embrace it and why you embrace it that way.
Man, why I talk about why first. Why I embrace it that way, Cody, is um the fact that I grew up without my father present. You know, um, I knew who he was. He was there when in my probably my toddler years and early childhood years. Then from here and there, he was just a hit and miss, and not hit and miss as far as him coming around. Hit and miss as far as me just seeing him, me happening to be in the right places at the right time where he was. So it wasn't like him making efforts to come see me or anything like that. I mean, it was to the point to where, because my father, man, I remember him from riding motorcycles. He was in a motorcycle club, and so I remember being 3, 4, 5 years old, him having me on his motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was one of the things that stuck with me. So when I would see him ride down the street, I would get excited because that's like, damn, my dad, he's coming out on a motorcycle. And so probably 10, 11, 12 years old, seeing my dad ride down on his motorcycle going to one of his motorcycle members' house on the same road that we lived on, I'm in the yard playing, him knowing where we live. I'm excited to see him riding down. I'm thinking he's about to stop, pull over
Right.
and greet me and show me the love and all that. And he never did that. I mean, like every time he would ride past me, being in the yard playing or me being outside or whatever. And it got to the point where I felt like a dog chasing the car.
Right.
And so that and my father not being around, that was the fuel to it because I was determined that when I start having children. And when I got married, that wasn't going to be my story. And
Hmm.
I played sports throughout high school, and my father was never there for any of that. But being jealous, not jealous, but just wanting what I was seeing from my friends that play. I could name some guys that you would know, but I'm not gonna name no names. But just some of my teammates that their father would be there after the game, after we had a good game, and they'd be there greeting them, and then they'd be there greeting me as well. But just seeing their moment, the father and son moment, the attaboys and all that, just longing for that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And there was a point where my mom, she wasn't coming to any of the games, but she had changed her work schedule and she started coming. So she kind of started filling that void a little bit once she started being able to be there and making her presence felt. But like having that father to son moment, like at those moments, just to give me the reassurance or to assure me that I was doing something good and um that I was doing the right thing and all the above. And not having that, I'm like, this ain't right. And so once I started getting a little older and making life decisions, some bad life decisions, I started having friends who had their own kids and things like that, and seeing them ducking and dodging their child's mother and stuff like that. I used to call them cowards because I'm like,
Hmm.
man, because I always felt like if I had that opportunity to be a father, man, that I didn't want to skip a beat. And then
Right.
I ended up having that moment because I had my oldest son when I was younger. Matter of fact, we were seniors, and early on, I was there in his life, helping raising him, and then a couple of bad decisions after the next, and broken relationship with the mom. Then she ended up taking the kid and moving miles away, and kind of went through a whole lot to get him back in my life to the point where kind of gave up on it because wasn't being around the right individuals to lead and guide me in the right direction. And like, hey, if you just go down to the courthouse and you do this and do this, A, B, and C, you can have your kid back in your life. She can't just take him and be away like this, especially since you're paying child support. And that, and then just starting to see a lot of my friends duck and dodge their son, their child's mother, and I'm like, I refuse to be this dad. At the point that I get married and have children, and at the point that I get my son back in my life, because I don't want to create a cycle. Because a lot of times, man, guys that grew up without fathers, their father grew up without a father, and it's you
Hmm.
know it's and it's like a
Yeah.
pattern,
It's like
and so
generational.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a generational thing. So I'm like, there's no way that that's going to be the pattern of the Hill family, starting from my lineage. And
Hmm.
so, that's been my fire ever since. So when I got married and we started having children, I've been making sure that I'm a part of coaching and everything that I can be a part of, not just because I have the skill to coach and I played the sports, but just for the quality time of it. And
Yeah.
I
That
tell
connection.
the connection. I tell a lot of dads that their kids play for me or whatever. I'm like, volunteer, come out and help out, do whatever
Hmm.
you can just to build you guys' bond. Like, especially if you're a dad, you're working full time and you get off work, because when you see a kid and you got that few hours to see them before they go to bed, and they're at school
Hmm.
all day, you at work all day if you're working first shift or whatever. And so I'm like, come out and coach just to build that bond. And some of them would, and some of them wouldn't, but um, that's been my driving force, though. Just not having my father around and wanting to change the narrative, and also wanting to be that father figure for a lot of kids who grew up like I grew up, not
Yeah.
having a father. And that's why I coach as well, because there's a lot of kids that come out and it's just mom,
So
dad's not
did you,
around.
not to cut you off, I just want to ask you real quick though, did you have a coach or anything like that in your life growing up?
I had a few coaches. They wasn't father figures, but I had a few coaches that were, you know, when I was in elementary, we had like 10 and under. We always had summer leagues, and we were younger. It was different. There was all kind of stuff going on at the schools all the time. So I was always at the school doing something, and so there
Hmm.
wasn't. there wasn't very many father figures, but there were like guys like hey like saying hey you should be doing this or doing that and trying to push me in the direction. But they I wouldn't say there was a father figure though.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So,
yeah.
like I said at the beginning, every time I see you, man, you got a big smile on your face. You always smiling, always look like you have a good time. Just seem genuinely happy, internally happy. Um,
Joy.
and I know that might not be all the time, but what makes you so happy? What brings you that, I guess, that sort of inner peace that you seem to portray?
Um, Probably keep from crying, man. No, it's good. But I mean, part of that is true to keep from crying and just it's just who I am, man. I mean, you know, I feel like there's no reason to hold grudges. There's no reason to um walk around being mad. And a lot of it is too, man. It's I kind of had a hard life growing up. You know what I mean? Before I started going to Carmen, we grew up on the north side of Flint, and so all I seen was violence, drugs, um, drive-by shootings, all that, and all that amongst us being out playing football, basketball, and whatever sport it was daily. You know what I mean? And so now, um, it's just a part of me. That's all I know to do. I mean, with all the violence that I grew up through, it was just I was in it and I was attached to it because I had to defend myself and I had to fight. At the same time, I was still the bubbly little kid because I think that's one of the things I might have took from my dad. Just being a easygoing guy, cool guy, always laughing guy, and then my mom, she's always smiling and stuff like that. And so now I feel like it's just joy, man, because with me growing up that way, and even after high school, man, the path I went down after high school, with drugs and alcohol and being in the streets and doing all that and dodging death, dodging um, jail and all that stuff from the lifestyle I
Hmm.
was living. At this point now, I'm so joy. I use the word. You said happy, but I use the word joy just because
Hmm.
I didn't always have that joy, and a lot of times the smiles that I was putting on were just me smiling, wearing that mask. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And everyone wears some form of a mask. But like me, like now, like even with some of my ups and downs, man, I'm like genuinely full of joy
Grateful.
because I grateful because man, there
Yeah.
were so many close calls. I mean, like where I be, walking down the street of the neighborhood I was living in and selling drugs in and gunshots fire and bullets being within inches of my head. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so, and being grateful that I'm here in my kids' life and they don't have to go down the
Right.
same path I went, that I'm able to give them all the things that I didn't have. And so, um, and and I'm in control of in control of my own day, man. So,
Hmm.
I always tell people, people always say, you know, um, there's no reason to complain. Yeah, there is a reason to complain, but it's if you choose to or not. But the things that we go through that cause us to complain, we're gonna let that control our day and ruin the fabric of who we are or the fabric of our day, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like it's about being in control. So if I'm gonna be in control of myself and the way I feel and how I'm gonna go about my day, then I can't allow anything around me to control my emotions. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
Absolutely.
so I choose to be grateful and have joy, man, because it's attractive. It's
Hmm.
attractive and it's friendly. You know what I mean? And it's a silent assassin at the same time. It's
Yeah.
a silent
Right.
assassin because with all the haters that we end up having as we go higher in the things that
Hmm.
we're endeavoring, what kills them the most is seeing us doing what we do or going through what we've been through
Hmm.
or getting through a storm with joy still having joy,
Yeah.
still having a smile on our face and still being able to be a light to the world. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And
Yeah.
so,
What? Do it with humility. Be humble. And, like, I mean, I have weathered quite a few storms myself, man. I've been through the trenches. We don't share the exact same story, but we do share some similarities, and you know, just what you go through, especially when you go through tragedy and just any sort of trauma.
Drama, yeah,
When you make it out of that, and you make it out of that with little to no damage, you know,
yeah,
all you can say is you're blessed. And if you don't believe in a God, I'm sure you probably do at that point,
yeah,
once you made it through everything. You know what I mean? So you know, I love that's I didn't know your backstory. I'm glad you shared that, because that's just makes me even more happier that you're on the show, because you know, that's big thing with what I do for Process 34 is, you know, you face adversity. You try to find, you know, everybody's going to be faced with something. Everybody's
right,
going to face trials and tribulations and adversity in life. What are you going to do to make it through it?
yep,
Because I promise you, whatever's the easiest is the worst that you
yep,
can do. You got to put in the hard work. You got to build this foundation. And I see you doing it. And I think that, you know, like you said, it used to be your mask, and now it's your joy. And it's like, I honestly think you're developing that inner peace, man. Like you've been through the fire, and now you're here with your kids in their life every day, probably annoying the hell out of them, but it's all love,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and try to and try to push him to be great. You know, what I mean, God really blessed me, man. He blessed me with a great wife
Yeah.
that she took me the way I was with all the baggage I brought to the table at the time, with as messed up as I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the you know
Same here, man.
my mentality. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
broke as I was. You know what I mean? Broke and the hood street mentality. You know what I mean? I still was a good guy on the inside, but I just had developed this mentality because of
That
you know
shell.
yeah yeah
Yeah.
and being in the fire a little bit. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
um, blessed me with a great wife, man, and we got beautiful children. You know, what I mean, our daughter's in college. You know, what I mean, my oldest son, he's back here in Michigan with me. You know what I mean? Helping him get together. Our four boys, man, they're all doing well and healthy, and giving us the business, and I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. And
What are the ages?
um, our daughter, she'll be 20 on Friday. She goes to Grand Valley.
Okay.
My son, he's 22, and then our four boys, that's in the house still, is 11, 9, 7, and 4.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, you got a lot of kids, man. You had to stop and pause and think about their
Yeah.
ages.
Yeah. A few
Yeah,
years between
yeah,
each of them, too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Old people call them stair steps. Yeah, look, we know we got a lot of kids. We be going to call one of their names, and we call them all by different names.
Right. Yeah.
We got to get through all of their names before we get to the name that we're actually looking for.
Right. Yeah. Let's call them a group. Could think of
Yeah,
a group name.
yeah. So, I mean, whatever your name is, man, get over here.
Right. Exactly. Um, so you kind of touched on it briefly, and maybe you did answer, but like with what you do with coaching and what you do with well, first of all, explain involved dad to me. What is the concept of involved dad, and what are you guys doing out there?
Involved Dad is a nonprofit organization that's founded by my boy Sean Hart, um, and it's just simply helping restore families through fatherhood engagement. And so there's this thing going around with child support where dads get disconnected because of child support. Dads get totally disconnected. They end up having a child, and they can be having a fabulous relationship at one point with mom, and for whatever reason the relationship don't last. Now baby's suffering, so he gets put on child support. Mom used the child as leverage, and now dad can't see the child. Now dad's behind on child support because he's deciding that he's not going to work because child support is taking all his money. And so we got all these dads with this same issue. And so what we do is, we help dads to to pay child support. We help dads with their arrearages. We help dads with parenting time, to
Hmm.
establish parenting time. We help them with representation. Some have to, they're needing to go to court and fight for their situation. Some of the dads are doing fairly well. We got a dad in our program right now. We actually went to school with him, but some dads are doing fairly well, and the mom is just giving them a hard time. And the way the system is here in Michigan is kind of it's pro mom, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so we what we do is we step in and give dad a fighting chance. So we have relationship with the friend of the court, direct relationship with the friend of the court, and so we're able to get guys warrants released or lifted,
Oh, okay.
and we get funding to help pay for the rearages and pay for child support and also pay for representation. And so these guys come in, man, they come in with this negative vibe towards the friend of the court, towards baby moms and all that. And so we work with them, send them through our impact program, and we start working on them and building on them, coaching them, and they started getting a better understanding of the system, started being accountable for some things that they done to put themselves in the situation that they're in. And so by the time they come in to the time that they're done with the program, they are paying child support, they have established parenting time, they have representation, and ultimately they are back connected with the child. May not be co-parenting, so we establish parallel parenting. But either
Hmm.
way, with either of those situations, our ultimate goal is restore that family. And when I say family, it may not be them in the same household, but making it to where that child has mom and
Yeah, the
dad
child and the parent. Yeah.
collectively parenting. Because they use the children as leverage, man, and it's not fair. And
Hmm.
and we help them to see who's at the center, and
Yeah.
once they settle down and start, and the guys who, and it's a group of guys, we're all, all in the room. There's a couple of facilitators in our program. It's called the Impact Program, and so the facilitators are there, but the guys that are a part of the program, they all share similar stories. And there's guys that have been through previous cohorts that come back just for the coaching piece and then for the leadership piece, because we also help develop them into different aspects of leadership so they can, go off into
Kind of mentor.
entrepreneurship or yeah, and
Yeah.
help them to enlarge their territory as far as what they can bring in, to provide for their family. And so in these rooms, man, there's just dialogue. Men are sharing their stories and kind of going back and forth, and the facilitators are there, but the the sharing of the stories and the dialogue that takes place, man, it just creates this whole vibe, man, where men are now sharing and they're talking about how they can be accountable and just really iron sharpening iron in this room, man. And
Yeah.
at the end of these 15 weeks, man, um, guys are restored mentally. You know,
So
they
it's a
they
course.
it's a course. It's a
Okay.
course. We just call it like sessions. It's almost like it's just you can call it a course. We call it we, I guess it's all the same.
Yeah.
Some call it group. But yeah, so it's all that because there is a facilitator there, but we just in there having one big conversation, which is how we like to say it, because the facilitators, even though they're certified um, counselors, they have their stories too.
Hmm.
So it's not like the men don't come in there. It's a safe place. It's a safe space for the men, so they come in feeling like they're in a safe space. Once they come in and get their feet wet, some of them come in first day, they don't know what to expect. And after a
Hmm.
few weeks, you know, the dialogue start taking place and the healing start taking place, and then the rebuilding start taking place. And
Yeah.
next, man, families are being restored. And so those guys, man, they are a part of their appreciation for what the involved dad does for them. They come back to the next cohort, and they don't have to, but they choose to come back, and they are part of the conversation for the next cohort that comes in, and it's just building blocks, man, and it's awesome, man. It's awesome, and I think we're the only agency around Michigan doing what we do, but it's definitely a game changer, man. And it's just for me, it's a joy to be a part of it, just because I was that guy on both sides of it, paying child support, and I was that
Hmm.
guy without my dad. So I know how the children feel, and I know how the dads feel when mom just up and leave with the baby. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah. So this is my calling, man, that I've been running from for the
Yeah, that's
last I don't know
crazy,
how many
man.
years, man. And it's so funny, man. Like sports has connected me to all of these different people that I'm a part
Yeah.
of now that I'm building with. Like Involved Dad's director and CEO Sean. I met him through football. His son
Okay.
was on my his son was on my flag team,
Okay.
and so we ended up meeting that way and end up connecting um, after that. And then the same thing with Dig Deep. We met them through football. So like me being a part of sports, man, has created a whole lot of beautiful relationships, man, and it's great and it's been great. And so that's there's so many perks to coaching, man, and being part of
Right.
sports.
So do
And
the people for involved dad, do the dads come to you guys, or do you guys go out and like seek people, or how does it work?
well, for when the new cohorts are coming up, we put an ad out, let dads
Okay.
know what's going on, and then there's a lot of dads in there who just share the story with other dads who having the same dilemma, and we also have the friend of the court. They refer dads as well.
Okay.
So a lot of the different agencies that we're connected with, when they have dads come knocking on their door for whatever, and child support issues come up in that conversation, then they refer them over to us.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
then we
I
get them
mean,
connect.
I've been through the process myself, and it's challenging, man. I did it all by myself, and it's hard. It's very hard for a dad who wants to be involved to get their rights. It is very
Yeah,
challenging, and it shouldn't be. Should
yeah,
not be that hard. Should not
especially
be
as
that hard.
Michigan, and it's
Yeah.
cool because we actually we have a seat and some very important tables in the state of Michigan that's a part of the change of the whole child support dynamic in the state of Michigan. Only thing about it is just it's like a ship, man. It's a
Yeah.
slow turning thing, man. They are working on it, man, but it's just
Politics.
happening. It just happening real slow. You're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's
Mm-hmm.
happening, but it's just a slow process. But we're definitely advocating. And we're able to stand in the gap for a lot of these dads that's coming in with these issues.
That's good, man. That's like I said, I've experienced it myself, so that's awesome to hear. I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know exactly the details of it, and that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
So when you're faced with adversity,
hmm
and you've been faced with it a lot in your life, from what I can hear, um, do you have a set of tools or skills that you rely on and that you use on a repeated basis, or do you just kind of wing it and just take it as it comes and embrace it and get through it however you get through it?
I used to do that, but now I kind of operate a little different. I created this thing called the toolbox, and in
Hmm.
this toolbox are different tools that men can use to overcome or get to the next level. Things that we grew up learning, like integrity, self control, work ethic, and got a long list of things. But I used to do that, but now, man, it's a little different now because before I didn't have an impactful circle.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Before I got to where I am now, mentally, physically, and spiritually, and the way I'm living and all that, I didn't have a circle. The circle I had wasn't a building circle. And so now the circle that I have, which is a really small circle, but the circle I have, I've learned to make my circle be a building circle, to where
Hmm.
everybody inside of my circle, um, if we're not in like pleasure moments, our conversation are like building conversations, and like they're doing something and I'm doing something. Everybody's doing something and bringing something um to the table in their life, and then in our life, such as like involve Dad and with Sean and even my wife, so that when things started getting tough, I just go to my circle and kind of
Hmm.
and share some of those things, because some of those guys in my circle that are um, beyond where I am, in some areas, which I like the design it that way, because I feel like if the circle is revolving, so you got to be pulling me up, and I'm pulling you up in some areas. But I go to my circle, man. I mean, I'm a man of faith, so I pray about things, and I talk to
Hmm.
God. You know what I mean? And I go to my circle, and I just um, weigh my options out, and see what the best move will be for me to make. And in most cases, I have to just go through fighting while I'm building,
Hmm.
because sometimes it's just designed that way, with some of the adversity. And with all the adversity that I've been through, like in the past, man, it's really made me strong. So when I see that particular adversity, like today, um, it don't phase me like it once did. Like, it don't tear me
Yeah.
down. It don't tear me down. Now I'm able to observe it, notice it, and know how to
Hmm.
deal with it. You know what I mean? And if it's something that I struggle with, knowing how to that I don't know how to deal with. I won't even say struggle with, but if it's something that I don't know how to deal with, or I haven't seen, then I just start consulting with my circle, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Um, People in my circle that I know, that's got wisdom, and I got some older gentlemen in my life too, that I talk to and I look up to, that mentor me in some areas. So once I start sharing some things with those guys, they start sharing, just sharing their story. They don't tell me what I should do or what I need to do. They just start sharing, and in their story, they start talking about some things that they went through that I may be currently going through or having adversity, and and it helps me to get through it. And
Yeah.
so I
So
think I think having a circle, man, and having the good people in your life, man, helps a whole lot. Because we can't do it alone, man.
yeah, no,
Some people try to go at this thing alone, and it's just not designed for us to go at it alone. You know.
it's not. You hit it. I mean, there's no way you can. I've tried it. I
Yeah.
promise you. I've tried it a million times, every way I possibly could, because I'm so stubborn.
Yeah.
And and it's always I come crawling back. It's, hey, I need you guys. And and that comes from, like you said, with experience, learning the hard way, and finally realizing and growing up and maturing and realizing that these people, this tight knit, this community that I have, this is what gets me through these things. This is what helps me, that. And like you said you're a man of God. Um have you always had a spiritual background, or is it something you've developed over time?
um. Kind of. Well, I was, yes and no. I would say yes, because around teenage years, 13 years, my mom, she ended up giving her life to God or whatever. So through my teenage years, we went to church, but it was just me going to church. I wasn't receiving spiritual. Um, I wasn't receiving what I needed to receive at my level and at my age. Now there
Hmm.
was some seeds planted. I will say there was seeds planted, because some of the things that I heard, growing up, some of those things stuck. And one of the main important things that stuck, when I was younger, was just the fact about praying,
Hmm.
and so that stuck. And so, but once I got older, though, it took me going through the fire and going through a lot of the stuff that I went through, you know, that made me really start seeking and really trying to learn about God and His ways and all those things on my own.
Yeah.
And then, once I got older and got into a good Bible believing, Bible teaching ministry, really started to understand God more, you know what I mean? And some of the ways that I thought, which came about early on, a lot of those things I learned that they were, they were just religious things, and that God isn't a religious God, you know what I mean? And people put God in this box and God not in the box, and people try to be all religious, or you can't do this, or you can't wear your hat in church, or women can't wear pants, or this and that and that, and it's like that. All that's not true. That's just what man have created to make their own way to manipulate people or whatever the case. And so, yeah, so I've been on both sides, but as far as being spiritual or having that background. So, but I would be lying if I said that a few seeds weren't planted, in my
Yeah.
younger years. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just
So you,
it was just the approach. Because I even now, like, I one of the ways I give back is I teach teens at my church.
oh,
um,
okay.
yeah, I teach teens in my church, and a lot of the ways, and I use scripture when I'm teaching them, but
Hmm.
I use practical stuff. I use real life demonstrations and talk about stuff that I've been through and stuff that they're actually going through now, and just kind of relate it to what the Bible's saying to help them see and understand, so they're not like don't see God in the Bible as being too spiritual or too holy for them to cope
Hmm.
with, helping them understand that you can still have fun and be a Christian. You can still have fun
Yeah.
and love God. You know what I mean? That everything you do that don't line up what your parents say, that stuff not sending you to hell, or you're not. That don't make you a
Hmm.
bad person. All those things that some kids grow up hearing because of the ignorance, because of the spiritual ignorance from their parents. And
Yeah.
a lot of that is because the parents, they don't dive into the Bible themselves. They going off of what someone's teaching them instead of diving into it themselves and learning for themselves. So
Yeah. I
you
feel
know,
like, and when it comes to organized religion, and I'm not here to speak any bad things on it, but what it seems like is the first thing they do in all religions is kind of slowly take the love out of it,
yeah,
and it's like it's all fear based, and it's like,
mm-hmm,
like, hey, my God loves me. My God is loving, and it's like that's what I think of. I don't want to think of and pray to and have faith in something I'm terrified of. You know what I
right,
mean? Like that's just it to me. That's what always turned me off from religion at a younger age. And
yep,
I've coached myself and taught a lot, like read a lot and taught myself a lot throughout the years about all sorts of different religions. And I have my own concept of God, and everyone has their own concept, and I could care less what it is. Just do what works for you, but embrace the love. Like that was my big thing, and I never understood why it's religion nowadays is war, hate,
mm-hmm,
and it's got all this negative connotation around it, and
totally
it's
against,
scary.
totally against God. God's number one thing is love.
Yeah,
Love,
exactly.
the Bible talks about love covering a multitude of sin. It talks so much about what love can do. You know what I mean? And it talks about it's the goodness of God that draw man to repent and want to change their life. And it's like, hold
Yeah,
on, y'all told me the way I'm living is going to send me to this lake of fire, and send me there and send me there. And it's like,
yeah,
hold on, I just read this and it said that it's the goodness of God. So if I tell people about how God been blessing me and how I have all of what I have because of God, they're starting to see the goodness of Him. So now they want to change because they see the goodness. And it's like,
right.
I mean, not to like be preaching or nothing, but it's just like, you know, oh, so that's God. Was you guys
Yeah,
trying to show me? I don't know who that person is.
right.
So
Yeah,
so
exactly.
tell me about God said. Tell me about the good things that's going to help me to change. Don't tell me about how I'm going to be killing myself or talking damnation to me.
Well, yeah, and it's like the way I looked at it is like, well, I already failed, I guess. You know what I mean? Like let's go out in a glory.
Yeah.
Why try to improve if if that candy bar that I stole when I was 7 years old put me in hell that day. Then what's the point of coming back, right?
Right. Right.
So, anyways, that's good. I'm glad to hear that you have such a strong support group. It's important. I also have some friends and family that I rely on. My wife is huge for me, man.
Yeah.
I can go to her with anything. I can go to a couple real close friends and family with some stuff. And I often find that, like, as soon as I start talking about it, it's like by the time I'm done, when I start talking about it, it's already getting better. by the time I'm done, I'm like, man, that really wasn't even that big of a deal, or
Yeah,
that wasn't
yeah,
that bad,
yeah,
like, but in my head, it was like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
yeah, it's good. It's important to have,
yeah.
being that you're such a uplifting person, and you try to be happy and you try to be joyful. What is your preferred method of cheering others up? If you see them down, if you see them going through a hard time, how do you embrace that for them? How do you try to lift their spirits or guide them?
Um, it depends. Sometimes, like if it's a father who has his children in his life, like when I was working in the factory, there was
Hmm.
work with a lot of family men and women too, and they were always complaining about work, and they people that's been working at the company for many years, so they wasn't really going anywhere, but they were always complaining, and it was always they want to quit and this and that and this and that, and so I'm just like yo, who you working for?
Hmm.
What's your motivation for getting up at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning every day to be here to punch this clock at 6 a.m. to drive 45 minutes if you drive that far? Like, what's your motivation for that? Who you do that for? Well,
Hmm.
I got little Timmy, I got little, and I got they start naming off all these kids who they got to provide for, and I'm like, so since you're doing this for them, then you need to then let them be your inspiration on how you gonna get through your day. Because since
Hmm.
you're doing this for them, they need you to have your strength. They need you to have the ability of your limbs, your fingers, and how you operate. They need you to be healthy. And so you
Hmm.
allowing this job to stress you out is not helping them. So if they're the
Hmm.
reason that you're doing all this, they need to be the reason that you have joy with everything that you're doing in this job. And so, that often will help them a lot. And I would share that with them because that's what I did for me. That's what would be my motivation.
Yeah.
And part of why I got an iPhone is to be able to FaceTime my family. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That'd be my woosah moment. FaceTime the kids, my wife, and see what's going on. Then now I'm back refreshed. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's my refresh button. And so I take that approach for for family people, and then for people who may not have children or just people in general that I may not know. Just like
Hmm.
you know what's you know what's your motivation? I mean, how do you I mean, it could be worse.
Yeah.
It could be worse. Just think about the worst moment you had.
Yeah.
Does it look like this? You know what I mean? And
So you
then
try
some, and
to
then
you try to show others or open up that door for others to show them, their purpose, what they are grateful for, kind of make them remember that, and you know what I mean, change the narrative a little bit, change their attitude.
yeah,
I like that.
yeah, but
That's a good perspective.
yeah, but even with teenagers, man, teenagers with siblings, I'm like, hey, you got like you see your little brother over there, or those little kids that see
Hmm.
you all the time, like they look up to you. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So everything you're doing is by design. These kids,
Yeah.
they are doing what they're doing because they look up to you. They're following after you. So you got to be the best version of yourself that you can be for them, because you would not want to see them doing certain things. So if they see you doing or acting this way because of whatever's going on, then they're going to respond. They're going to respond to it. So
Hmm.
if you want to see the best for them, then you got to see the best for yourself first.
Right.
And so it all depends, man. And really, man, a lot of that stuff, man, I feel like the spirit gives it to me, man, because I'm really quiet. I'm really a quiet person, man. And me knowing that I've been wanting to be a change agent in this earth, man, I think um, I think the Creator has really been giving me insight and um, giving me the words to say to a lot of
Hmm.
these men. Because a lot of times, man, I don't be knowing how to approach them,
Yeah.
even with some of the kids, because and because I didn't go to school for none of this stuff, man, and like.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my experiences, but I always been a quiet guy. I'm still a quiet guy. I don't
Hmm.
communicate much. And when it's time to start talking to these men or these young boys about bettering themselves and things of that nature, man, it just be flowing. It just
Mm-hmm.
flowing. And so I just say, man, that's just the creator on the inside of me giving me all these
That's
things to say, man. Cause at the end of it all, I just be like, where'd that come from?
right.
You know?
Yeah. That Chuck, man, Chuck, I started this podcast and I'm a quiet guy. I'm reserved. I don't speak a lot unless it's necessary.
I remember you.
Um, yeah, and it's like I started this podcast and I was terrified. As soon as the camera turned on, as soon as I turned the lights on, I looked at the microphone. I was like, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. Um, but I told myself at the beginning of this year that I wanted to start instead because I've been thinking about stuff. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to try to do this. I want to try to do that. Back burner, back burner, back burner, back burner. And then 5 years down the road, it's like, man, I should have done all that stuff. Now where am I? So I
Yeah,
told myself like this year I'm doing things. I'm going to do this stuff. Even if I'm terrified to do it, I'm just going to try it. Certain things, I'm not going to face them all this year, but I'm going to face some of them.
yeah,
And this podcast was it, man. Cause Process 34, I started it. I have, a little bit of a following and people doing it. And it was, it's cool and I love it and it's great, but it's like, I want to be able to kind of share this positivity with others. And I want to bring people like yourself on. I want to show people like, hey, it's not just me that are doing, trying to do good things out here, because
right,
we're not on billboards. We're not
right.
on the news. We're not in newspapers. We're little guys doing little things, little bits and pieces here and there. But at the end, I think it's huge what we're doing in hindsight.
Absolutely.
It's enormous, but what I'm trying to get at is I was so scared to do this. I was so scared to do this and I just did it. I prayed on it. I asked for the courage. I asked for that strength and I had actually wrote a script and started reading this thing and was like, man, this is terrible. Like I just sound like I'm just sitting there reading you guys, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it was horrible.
yeah,
So threw it away, hit record and just started talking. My first episode is me talking with no notes, no nothing at all. Just me talking directly from my heart. What is Process 34? And I got done and hit stop. I didn't even know what I said. I swear to you, I have no clue what I said. I
yeah,
had to listen to the recording again. I was like, I don't even know what I just talked about, and I was scared because a lot of it, like when I get like that, I'll just be, I'll talk and talk and talk. And, when it's all
yeah,
said and done, it's like I'm so far from the point, it doesn't even make sense anymore. But
yeah,
it was actually pretty good, and it was like that wasn't, I really felt like that was not me because I swear to you, I have no clue what I was saying, but it was literally directly from the heart and it could not have been more genuine, you
yeah.
know?
And that's what it's about, man. Like I mean, that's what my mentor, who's a speaker, man. He's all over the place speaking, man. And some places I go with him, and then whenever I go with him, he give me some time to speak as well. But being authentic, man,
Yeah.
is the key. Being
Hmm.
authentic, man. We went to Port Huron in February, and it's funny, man, because we do this thing every year. They had this conference, and they invite him, and I always go with them, and and we in Port Huron with this event, and we're like, it's I think we're like two of like four black guys in like a room with like 300 is all white
Hmm.
guys. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I love it because it's like it's all love, man. It's just such a great event. But when it was time for me to talk with him, give him a little motivational spill. When I started like being authentic and talking about like my failures and like how I overcame those things and how I'm still working on some of those things for the little time that I talked, man, it was just like that compared to the story I was going to create this year,
Hmm.
just trying to be on some because we was in the church doing it, and this and that.
Hmm.
And it's like once I shared from a place of authenticity,
Hmm.
man, it was like the reception was crazy. It was like overwhelming for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my mentor, he like, man, that's the best I ever heard you speak. And he was like, for you to talk about the one thing you talked about. And I was like, well, that's kind of been the one thing that's been missing that I haven't talked
Hmm.
about, with all the motivational spills that I've done. That's the one thing that I haven't talked about. So, um, me talking about that has been uh, a pain point for many years. And man, it was, teenage boys and some college kids and some older
Hmm.
guys, man, and they just was, they were really appreciative of what I was sharing. And it's just like, um, your story, man. One thing about your story, you can talk all day when you're talking about you, and it's
Hmm.
authentic.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we fail at, man, is we often feel like our story not good enough to help somebody,
Yeah.
or we downplay our story, or downplay where we came from, or we feel shame, or we feel some kind of way of some part of our lives that we don't want to share it. And us sharing those pain points is what actually helps people.
Yeah. And honestly, I've for the longest time, my issue was like, I'm only going to give you bits and pieces because A, I don't trust you, and B, um, I'm afraid of the judgment. I
Mm-hmm.
am. I'm afraid of the
Yep.
judgment, and I don't want to be judged on my past. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to because I'm not that person anymore. And people have a hard time understanding that people change. But then when you start doing what you said, when you start talking raw and telling your story and letting that mask go and letting that wall down and showing the real you, others embrace it so much because everybody's wearing a mask. I
Yep.
don't care who you are,
Everybody. Yep.
everybody is. Everybody, so they can relate whether they're going to say that or not.
Yep.
They could be that what they seem to be the happiest person, the most perfect person, and they're going home and, they're struggling.
Yep.
They're struggling when they're
Absolutely.
alone.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, man. We be in rooms, man, and I get to sharing the story, man, and just being authentic, and and guys, just sometimes guys get to crying, man, and just getting emotional,
yeah.
and they're just like I've been through the same thing, and I've been holding on to this for so long, and you sharing your story, man, just help me to understand that I don't have to live in this no more, and they just start coming out, man, and it's just like,
Hmm.
you know, it's and you said it, you hit the nail on the head, man. Is us being afraid of the judgment, man.
Hmm.
And that was my thing, and I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't care.
Hmm.
I don't care. If I help one person out of all these people in this room, then me sharing
Yeah.
my story then I did my job.
Yeah.
Because that one
And
person who I just helped, they may go and impact 30 people, and then
yeah.
those 30 may go impact 100 people, all
And
just
you're helping
from
yourself.
absolutely.
You're freeing yourself, man. You're freeing yourself,
Yes,
and you're
sir.
opening up so many more doors
Yeah.
when you show the world your true self. So, man, Chuck, it's I have one more question for you, but I just wanted to say just thank you. I'm so glad we did this because, like I said, I've known you for a long time, but I haven't known you.
Yeah.
I didn't know your whole
Likewise.
story, and I appreciate you so much coming on the show, sharing with us your story, and giving us that hope because that's what this is all about. People are gonna struggle, especially here in Flint, Michigan, baby.
Yeah.
There's a lot of struggle out there.
There is, man.
So, but there's positivity in all of it. There is light as long as you can be aware and try to look for it because when we're faced with all of these trials and tribulations, it's very easy to get caught up in that negativity cloud and, start seeking
Absolutely.
resources that we don't need to be around and we don't
Yeah.
need in our lives. Um,
Absolutely.
just wanted to hit you with one thing, man, and answer this however you want to, as long as you want to, as short as you want to. But if you had a chance right now to sit down and talk to younger Chuck, what would you say to him?
Oh man. I tell them to slow down. I tell them to slow down. I tell them to focus. I tell them to pay attention. I tell them to listen. Yeah, I tell them to listen. Tell them to listen. Tell them to work a little harder at at what he loves. Tell them to work a little harder. Yeah. Tell them to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Tell them it's okay to tell the truth. Yeah. I tell him to respect his mom. Tell him to listen to his mom and listen to his stepdad when his stepdad was around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell him to relax and that you can't make everybody happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'd ask him, do you care about living to see the next 20, 30 years? You know what I mean? Tell him to put a condom on.
I think too, man, from what I've heard, it's you had a lot of pain, you had a lot of anger, and it's like everything was okay in the end. Everything turned out okay. Everything's gonna be okay. And you made it. And I'm happy for you. I'm happy to see you on the other side of this fence. I'm happy to see people that I grew up with succeed and be on a path of trying to empower others and uplift others. And more than anything, what's big with me is, I want to help as many people as I possibly can, but I love helping children, man. I'm all about it. The younger generation, just fully embracing helping any kid who's in need of anything or doesn't have stuff that they should have, whatever. That hits me right here, and that's important to me. So to see you doing it with your own kids and others through coaching, coaching is huge, man. I was an athlete, still an athlete, and there are coaches that I had in my life that still to this day I see in public and I embrace them and I feel like a 12-year-old kid again, man. You know what I mean? Like it's just they coaches have a special place, and it's nice to see the ones who truly do care, because there's a lot who don't,
There
and you know
is.
that,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
it's good, and you're one of them. So thank you for that, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for exposing me to this platform too, man. Because this is supposed to be my year to
Absolutely.
start my podcast as well.
Let me
Toolbox
know,
Talk.
man. Let me know. I'll help you out, man. Whatever I can do.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot. I'm literally learning every episode, but I can show you whatever I know. But are you is involved dad, anything like that? You guys have social media platforms that you're on? What are your handles? Any of that you want to
Yeah.
share?
InvolvedDad.org is the site. Involved Dad also has Facebook platform, and I'm on Facebook as Chuck Hill. I'm on Instagram as C_Hilly_Hill. Um, not really on
And what
Twitter.
about the toolbox?
The toolbox, and I'm actually working on my book. It's called the Toolbox Manual, and it's kind of dive into all the different tools that men. It's more so to men that men can use um, to fix brokenness. Tools you can use to fix brokenness. You know what I mean? And I supposed to drop this book last year, man, and I was going hard on myself because I hadn't dropped it last year. But this book that
Mm,
I'm reading right now, um, she talks about, it's called the 5 second rule. Mel Robbins. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but
I've heard of that.
she talk about procrastination,
Mm-hmm.
and then she talk about and one of the things she talk about procrastination is that there's good procrastination and then there's bad procrastination. And she's like, when you're working on a project and you have to put it off for a little bit to come back to it, that's good procrastination. And so she helped me to see that a lot of the things that I went through as the book was still being written, even until today, that I'm going to add to the book
Yeah.
is things that I wouldn't have had to put in the book if I had finished it last year. So,
Yeah. It
so
wasn't, the universe wasn't ready for it yet.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I'm working on the toolbox book and also working on putting together a little mentorship program for young
Okay.
boys. Um, so like 8 to 15 years old, something like that. I really haven't totally figured out the age group yet, but I know I want those really those 8 to 14 year olds or even 7 to 14 year olds. You know, some of those kids. And so I'm working on a mentorship program for that, and that'll be coming soon, real soon. But because I'm with you, man, I'm working with these kids, man. These kids are
Yeah.
sponges, and they these kids need male figures, man. They need male figures, and you know some of these dads, man, they're around, they're in the house, but they're not involved. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And some dads think because they're funding everything that their kids want to do that's
Hmm.
you know that's being involved. Like the kid's not gonna remember that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Some kids get a bad hand dealt to them, man. They
yeah,
really
yeah,
do, and it's not fair to them.
yeah. Kids, man, the kids that they just want time, man. They just want time
Yeah.
and that companionship, man. Going to get ice cream
Hmm.
every Tuesday, pizza
Yeah.
the pizza spot every Friday. They remember stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't remember all the things that you pay for and all that. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah. So I'm working on doing a mentorship program and help a lot of these single moms out. Toolbox manual is on the horizon. Um, Looking to start this podcast by the summertime, Toolbox Talk, and I'll be hitting you up to
Look at you, man.
I'll be
Look at you.
hitting you up to come over as well. And a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff, man, I've been kind of been pushing off, you know, and it's like this year, a lot of it is like, no, it's time.
Yeah.
You know, it's time, and you know, kind of just being reluctant because you feel like you don't have the tools or you're not ready. And the
Yeah.
thing is, you'll never be ready if you keep telling yourself you're not ready.
Hey, man, I've been scared. I'm
Yeah.
not afraid to admit it. I've just been scared,
Yep.
and and I'm doing it. And if it fails, at least I tried, right?
Yep.
And on to
Absolutely.
the next thing.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, man. So
um,
yeah, so those things are coming soon. So I hit you
I
up on
love it.
that.
Got
Yeah.
some good things coming up. Busy year ahead of you. As always, thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so now. Subscribe, like. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also check out the audio version of the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. As always, thank you so much, Chuck. Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure not only having you on, but getting to know you. Look forward to having you on again and
Yeah,
hopefully being on
man.
yours as well.
Absolutely.
And until next time.